Okay, let's dive in. So picture this. You've bought, say, a phone from Docomo on installments.
Right.
Maybe it was one of those white ROM deals, just the device, no SIM right away.
Yeah, huh? Just the hardware.
And now we're thinking, how much do I still owe on this thing? Seems easy, right? Just hop online.
Yeah, you'd think so. But that's often where the snag happens. What if you can't remember your D account login?
Exactly. Maybe the ID slipped your mind, or the password, or you're just not even sure which D account it's linked to.
And suddenly, that simple online check,
Mm,
well, it hits a roadblock.
precisely. And tackling that specific problem, checking your Docomo installment balance when you're stuck without the D account info, that's exactly what the sources you shared are all about.
So our goal today is really to unpack all that. We'll look at the steps, the different paths laid out in the material you sent over.
And figure out the best way forward, depending on someone's situation, right?
Exactly. Like, do you have a Docomo line still? Or not? How fast do you need this info? We want to cut through the confusion and give you a clear map based on these sources.
Perfect. Okay, first things first. This term white ROM device pops up in the sources. What exactly does that mean here?
Yeah, the sources clarify that. It just means you bought the device itself from Docomo, could be online, could be in a store, without getting a SIM card or a line contract tied to it right then and there.
Got it. Just the gadget.
Just the gadget.
But crucially, even without a SIM, if you paid in installments, that payment plan is still with Docomo, yeah. The sources stress this.
Oh, absolutely. That's the key thing. You bought it from them on installments, so the financial agreement is with Docomo.
And it's managed through a D account.
Yes. The sources make it clear that payment contract is linked to a D account. That's why the D account is normally the way in, but also why losing those details is the central problem you're looking at.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the standard way first, using my Docomo. Assuming you do have your D account ID and password ready, how do the sources say you check the balance?
Okay, so the standard online route, according to the sources, you go to the My Docomo website in your browser, click the button that says Log in with D account. Pretty straightforward.
Okay. Enter the ID, password, then what?
Once you're logged in, you look for a tab or section usually labeled Fees.
Fees.
And within that, under something like Breakdown of Usage Fees, you should find an item called Device, etc., installment payments.
Ah, there it is.
Exactly. And right under that, it should list the remaining installment payments. That's your number.
Simple enough if you have the login.
That's the catch, isn't it? The sources confirm it's fast, it's 207, but it absolutely requires knowing that D account ID and password.
Which leads us right into the core issue your sources address. What if you don't know them? What are the options then? The material seems to split things based on whether you still have a Docomo line, right?
That's exactly how the sources frame it. Yep. The path forward kind of branches depending on your current connection or lack thereof with Docomo.
Okay, let's take scenario A. You do have an active Docomo mobile line. How can you use that to get your D account info back, according to the sources?
Right, so if you have an active line, the sources mention a specific online recovery method. It uses your network PI.
The network PN. Okay. How does that work?
The key thing here, and sources are specific about this for security, is you need to access My Docomo from your smartphone, and crucially, using the Docomo mobile network, not Wi-Fi.
Ah, okay. So it uses the network connection itself to verify it's you.
Yeah.
Smart.
Seems like it. Once you're on My Docomo that way, you navigate to Settings, sometimes listed as Settings, Email, etc. And in there, you should find an option like Confirm a locked account ID password.
Okay, and that's where the network PN comes in.
Exactly. It'll prompt you for that 4-digit network P associated with your phone line contract.
And if you enter the correct PN,
your D account ID should be displayed right there on the screen. Then you can use that ID to log into My Docomo properly, or maybe reset the password if needed.
But what if you've forgotten the network PN too? Do the sources cover that?
They do mention that.
Yeah.
If you don't know your network PI, this online method won't work. You'd actually need to go to a Docomo shop to get the PI reset first.
Okay, so it's a handy online fix, but only if you have the line and you remember that PI.
Correct. It's got its prerequisites. If either is missing, this particular path is blocked.
All right, then let's look at scenario B. What if you don't have an active Docomo line anymore? Maybe you switched carriers or never had one linked to that account. What then?
So in that case, the sources say that online network PI recovery method is off the table. You can't do it.
Right. No line, no network verification.
Exactly. So to get access to your D account, the sources say you need to go through a process called reissuing the account.
Reissuing. And how does that happen online?
Now, this one requires a trip. The sources state you need to visit a physical Docomo shop.
Ah, okay. An in-person visit. What do you need to bring?
You'll definitely need identification. The sources list things like a driver's license or your health insurance card. Standard stuff.
Uh-huh.
They also suggest bringing your D point card number if you have one associated with the account, as that might help.
And what if you don't have a D-point card or can't find the number?
The sources add a little note that even without it, if you happen to have the original contract paperwork or maybe the receipt from when you bought the device, bringing that might speed things up a bit. But the ID is the main thing.
Okay. So you go to the shop, show your ID, maybe some other bits, and the staff help you reissue the D account.
That's the process outlined. They'll guide you through the steps there to essentially get you new access or confirm your existing credentials. Once that's done, you should be able to use those details to log into My Docomo online and check the balance the standard way.
Got it. So no Docomo line means a shop visit is needed to fix the D account login issue first. Definitely requires a bit more legwork.
It does. It's the necessary route described when that online shortcut isn't available.
Okay, but wait, the sources also mention some other ways, right?
Hmm.
Methods that kind of bypass the whole D account login problem entirely.
Yes, that's another interesting angle the sources present. These are ways to find out the balance directly, without necessarily needing to recover or log into the D account first.
And these work whether you have a Docomo line or not.
That's what the sources indicate, yes. They're presented as universal alternatives.
Okay, let's hear about alternative one, calling them up. Docomo Customer Center.
Right. The sources give the numbers. Dial 151 if you happen to be calling from a Docomo mobile phone.
Okay.
Or if you're using a landline or a mobile from a different carrier, the number is 0120-800-0000.
I got it. And what happens when you call?
You'll go through the automated system, follow the prompts to eventually get connected to a human operator. The advice from the sources is to be really clear up front. State that you want to check the remaining installment balance on a device.
Okay, be specific.
Yes. The operator will then need to verify who you are, naturally.
Right, security. What kind of info should you have ready?
The sources recommend being prepared to give details, like the subscriber's full name, probably the address on file, date of birth, standard verification questions. Having that info ready makes the call smoother.
Makes sense. And then they just tell you the balance.
Once they've confirmed your identity and found the relevant contract, yes, they should be able to provide the outstanding installment amount over the phone.
The obvious advantage is doing it from home. Any downsides mentioned in the sources?
The main one highlighted is potential wait times. Customer service lines can get busy.
Ah, the dreaded hold music.
Could be, though the sources offer a small tip. They suggest trying to call during, say, weekday mornings or maybe later in the evening, as those times might have shorter queues compared to peak hours.
Good tip. Okay, so calling is one direct option. What's the other alternative?
The other direct route is, again, visiting a Docomo shop. But this time, the goal isn't necessarily to reissue your D account. It's just to ask them directly for the balance information.
Ah, so skipping the D account recovery step and just asking for the number straight up in person?
Exactly. You find a shop, go in, talk to the staff.
And tell them.
Just like the phone call, state clearly you need to check the remaining balance on your device installment plan.
And you'll need ID again, I assume.
Definitely. The sources reiterate that. Be ready to show your driver's license, health card, or similar official identification.
Anything else that might help for this kind of visit?
Similar to the reissue process, the sources mention that if you happen to have the original contract or the purchase receipt, bringing it along might help the staff locate your details more quickly. Not strictly required, perhaps, but potentially helpful.
Okay, so comparing this direct shop visit just for the balance info, how does it stack up against calling or the online methods, according to the sources? Pros and cons.
Well, the big pro for the shop visit, based on the sources, is reliability and direct support. You're face-to-face with someone who can look it up, answer questions.
Right. Less room for misunderstanding.
Exactly. The sources actually kind of position this as perhaps the most foolproof method, especially if someone's feeling a bit lost or not comfortable with the other options. They call it reliable and safe, particularly for beginners.
Makes sense. And the con.
The obvious one. It takes time and effort. You have to physically go to the store during their opening hours.
Travel time, maybe waiting in the shop. Yeah.
Right. Convenience versus certainty, essentially.
Okay, wow. So we suffered quite a few paths here based on your sources.
Well, you have.
There's the standard My Docomo login, if you have the detail.
Check. Fast and easy then.
There's the online recovery using your network PIN, if you have an active line and remember the PIN.
Yep. A good online fallback for some.
There's visiting a shop to reissue the D account if
Yeah.
you don't have a line and need to get back into My Docomo.
The necessary step in that case.
No.
Requires a visit.
And then there are the two direct routes, calling the customer center or visiting a shop just to ask for the balance, bypassing the D account login altogether.
Right. Phone offers convenience, but maybe wait times. Shop offers direct help, but requires travel.
It really paints a picture of choosing the best fit for your specific situation, doesn't it? Like navigating a flowchart.
That's a good way to put it. The sources effectively lay out that decision tree.
Yeah.
It depends on what info you have readily available, the account details, network PIN, ID, and also practical things like whether you have an active line or how much time you have.
You pick the path with the fewest hurdles for you personally.
Precisely. And there's one more important piece of context the source is included about the timeliness of this information.
Oh, right. Good point. What did they say?
They specifically note that this information is based on their research as of May 22, 2025.
Okay. A timestamp. That's important.
Very. Because, as the sources themselves point out, things change. Docomo might update their website, change procedures, modify security requirements.
So this is accurate as of that date, but always double check.
Exactly. They strongly recommend that for the absolute positively latest information, especially around sensitive things like account access of PNs, the official Docomo website or calling the customer center directly, that 151 number, is always the best bet.
That makes complete sense. You have to be careful with account stuff.
For sure. They add a little note about handling D account reissues and network pins with care, which seems like sound advice.
Absolutely. Okay, so this deep dive, using your sources, has really laid out the landscape well. We have the steps, the different scenarios, but always good to remember that official check for the very latest.
It gives you a really solid starting point and clarifies the options available based on the sources provided.
So we boil it all down. What's the main takeaway for someone stuck trying to check that Docomo installment balance when the easy online way is blocked?
I think the core message from these sources is, you do have options. We've walked through them. The online routes, if you meet the criteria, D account or line plus PIN, and the more direct routes via phone or a shop visit if you don't, or if you prefer.
And the sources seem to suggest.
They lean towards the shop visit with your ID ready as being probably the most reliable, especially if you're feeling unsure. It cuts through the online complexities, but ultimately the best path depends on your specific circumstances.
Right. So, listeners, having explored these options from the material provided, you should now have a much clearer map to follow, whatever your starting point is. Knowing that balance is key to managing things properly.
Definitely. And, thinking about all these different methods, it sparks a final thought.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we live in this super digital age, right?
Yeah.
We expect everything instantly online. Yet here we see that for something pretty fundamental, checking how much you owe on a device, the paths can still involve phone calls, specific network requirements, or even physical visits.
Yeah, that's true.
So the question to ponder is, why is that still the case sometimes? What does this mix of digital, phone, and in-person access tell us about the balance companies strike between convenience, security, and supporting different customer needs? And how does understanding these different access points maybe change how you think about managing all your various service accounts and personal data? It's an interesting reflection on our connected, yet sometimes still very physical, world.